Better late than never. Here we are. Namaste. Welcome to all of you. Good to see you. Okay, so this is our last for a while question and answer session. We're going to take a pause and let more of you get into the questioning mode. And if there's otherwise, we will not continue with this. It's my orientation to life is to respond to what comes, not to create something in motion. Now, so why we started this was there's a response of quite a few questions, but now we're down to 2, maybe 3 questions. So I'm happy. I'm happy there are no questions. You don't need to create questions. Where do questions come from? They come from the part of us that doesn't yet know the answer you already have. And of course, it's always useful to question your answers. But interimly, I think this is playing a role, so I've been happy to do it. So today, who I have with me is Satas. Ta-da! And I'm going to let Satas run the show. I'll step in the background and just do my answering bit.
Okay, time for the show. For me, it's just a delight to be here. I kind of had to drag myself to be here, but I was just sitting here beforehand and just so clear that why would I not leap through hoops of fire to be here sitting next to Sat Shree? And I really feel that we all have the opportunity. This is a really intimate setting. We've got less than 40 people on the call. And so even if you've not typed in a question, you do have the opportunity. I mean, here in Washoe, it's a rainy, cold morning. It's kind of cozy. We've got a fireplace behind us. So you have a chance to, and it doesn't even have to be a question. You have a chance to interact and connect or just be close with Sat Shree. If there's something in your process that you've been wanting to get some clarity on or simply to articulate for yourself, this is a precious opportunity. And like Sat Shree just said, it's the last one of the year, and we'll see if this line gets renewed or gets discontinued. So I would invite you in that spirit, if there's something in you that you've been kind of saving up or holding back, here's your chance to bring it forward. And we do have 2 questions to begin with. They're quite nice. And maybe if there's rumor of a third, we'll see if that manifests. Well, the first question is from Anandamayi, Michelle. And she writes, Dear Sat Shree, could you speak a bit about humility versus self-diminishment? For me, it's sometimes difficult to discern. Out of fear of not being humble, I hide and go into self-diminishment. Actually, now I realize it's probably just an excuse to hide. I think if I hide less, if I speak my truth more, only with these experiences I will learn to be in balance. And if I might be or come across as arrogant, which I have fears about, it's a necessary learning experience. A quote by the mother, humility is that stage of consciousness in which whatever the realization, you know the infinite is still in front of you. With love and gratitude, Anandamayi.
It's a beautiful question, Anandamayi. And, what is true humility? So coming into that place of true humility, the conversation about humble isn't there. You're just authentically yourself. You're just real. Now, giving us permission to be as we are and not judging it is one of the paths to discovering what is true humility. So the thing that makes us question the natural part of our own self-existence and its unfolding, and inevitably, there is an unfolding on the spiritual path as the claim of the ego becomes less and less, and we become more and more able to truly be in touch with ourself, recognizing both the parts that are still distorting us and the parts that are aligned with our journey. So humility is simply the willingness to question the assumptions that may still carry a taint of our past. But that's really more in the category of self-inquiry. The category of self-inquiry is the certain place route to go to discover the true humility. Now, what is the nature of that true humility, right? It's awe and wonder and gratitude. When we're in awe and wonder and gratitude, the mother's quote there is being fulfilled. There's no issue of humility in that moment. So living in that space of the unfolding of that which is yet to come, learning to discover the parts of ourselves that you're willing to let go of and parts of yourself you're willing to strengthen that are aligned with that awe and wonder. So if you're in gratitude, if you're in awe and wonder, there's no question of humility. You are that then in those moments. True humility actually disappears, as does sacrifice, where life becomes this effortless movement towards meeting whatever is the next thing, dark, light, inward, outward. So this is this willingness, this resilience, this capacity to take it all in, digest it, and then come into the right relationship with existence from that digestion process. So it's an unfolding process. I mean, I'm clear, that's been my journey, that it is this constant questioning of the assumptions when something comes up, which creates a reaction. But one thing that will take you to true humility faster is to stay in your heart and not your head. Because the head is the one that holds the repository of all those parts of ourselves about how we should or shouldn't, what's good, what's bad, what we're using our fear of our own being arrogant as a means to keep small. I mean, you answered your question perfectly with that response in your email. It's keeping you small. It's keeping you from having actually to take a chance to be arrogant. Try it on.
Mhm.
Wear it. See how it fits. See how it affects people. See if you are projecting their judgment onto yourself. So the discovery of coming into relationship also means getting less vested in what others think of you. When you get less invested with what you think of yourself, you'll discover you'll have less investment with what others think of you. And if someone else judges you as arrogant, then that's their issue. It really is. Now, you can use it to say, if someone speaks up and say, I don't like how you are. I don't know what happened to you, Nanda Mai. Before you're this wonderful, humble girl that never disturbed anybody. And now you're making me irritated and I can't be around you anymore. And I don't know what it is about you, but, you seem like you've lost yourself. Well, how's that fit? Feel true? So you have to discover that place within yourself that stands in our own authority as well. And from others' point of view, that may not look like humility, but it's you aligning with this very great thing that is so much more than what you've been or what other people have been able to see through the veils of their embodiment. Becoming divine is this complicated process of becoming big, not small, becoming expanded, not contracted. So obviously, somewhere in that process, the ego is probably going to lay claim to becoming big and not pay attention to how it's affecting other people. Is this wrong? Well, no, it's a process of creating a world that's aligned with the truth that you are. So if breaking out of what you've been and becoming what you are becoming creates disruption, then that's another opportunity to include it. Watch. The path of spirit always validates when the action has been taken aligned with spirit. You will know that you've stepped into a new arena, no matter what the reaction is, within yourself. So the secret here is to trust yourself, trust your own experience. On your path to discovering true humility, you have to be in the part of you that is in your body, in your heart to begin with, but then in your whole body, that is longing to align with the inherent divinity that you carry. So in this way, these old measures are no longer valid. And there's nothing worse than false humility. Oh, I should, fit in or whatever, because it's a lie. You're actually feeling something different, and you're pretending from what you're pretending. So that's hypocrisy. That's actually a lot worse than not being humble. A lot worse than arrogance. So how this eases the waters? So evidence of humility is always gratitude, wonder, and awe. Use that as your gauge, not this. And do not be concerned as much about what others say or think of you. Use it as an opportunity to question, to see, am I being true to myself or am I not? Other than that, it has no role to play. Other people's perspective, points of view may or may not be useful to you. You're the one who's going to know that. It's interesting. This is a theme that's been happening, the issue of authority, the issue of what do you trust, the issue of what is truth and what's not. It's come up in a number of questions and what people are speaking. And of course, this is inevitable right now in an arena where the Lord of Falsehood has found the greatest podium on the planet to spread doubt, suspicion, distrust, and alternative versions of reality. It is there scattered our ability to sort out what's true or not, especially if our mind gets engaged. So true humility is the willingness to include the chaos, to include it all, but stay true to yourself. And it all comes back to you being true with yourself. When you're true with yourself, the true humility is there, even if it seems like arrogance to others. All right, there you go. That's a good one. Thank you.
Okay, so our other question is from Galen, a frequent flyer on the hot seat. I don't see him in the audience. He's writing about kind of the bridge between scripture and more modern psychological approaches to processing. So it's about a paragraph. I'll just read it. Dear Sat Shree, I'm wondering if you could clarify on the connection between scriptural approaches to controlling or restraining the senses and the more psychological approach to seeing, understanding how the ego operates. For example, it seems like quite a different approach to not allow oneself to be taken for a ride by one's emotions through refusal, which is how I understand scriptural prescription, and not going on a ride through seeing the mechanics of projections. For example, knowing that my dislike of someone points to an unacknowledged part of myself. The first feels forceful and less effective, whereas the second is effortless, if it can be accomplished. Or again, I don't see scriptural references to shame structures or other such things. So this psychological approach seems quite important, and yet doesn't seem to be addressed scripturally, except obliquely. Is this addressing something different and new, perhaps due to the modern form of ego blockage, or is it something old that is simply being put into modern language?
All right, very good. Galen. The nature of the question is really the 3 R's. Okay, but I do believe you answered it. But I think I want to enrich in that inquiry. The 3 R's are rejection, restraint, and relinquishing. And why there are 3 qualities to this is some things are so embedded, they are so overwhelm you that your only option is to initially reject them. Now, the pattern of rejection in the scriptures is, of course, based on that very male tradition in which almost all spirituality rose out, which was to separate you from that which you're rejecting. So the pattern of that was aligned with the truth of bringing the sword of truth and cutting away the darkness, right? Cut out the cancer. It was an all or nothing. And that has a role to play, like in the case of addiction, in case of negative, repetitive stories, especially ones that we apply to ourselves about self-diminishment. The pattern of rejecting is bringing forward the authority in you that can kill the alternative. So rejection has a power that should not be diminished. The only problem with it, it is only a temporary solution, because the ultimate path of the scriptures is to rejection of everything that you are as a person, rejection of your very existence as a human being. That's not our purpose. And it's never been the purpose of the creation. It was an interim structure in the evolution of man to going to truth. The only way out was to get rid of the untruth. Restraining. Now, restraining we do all the time. That's kind of like a human way where you got a tendency, but you restrain it. Now, I mean, it's just like Ananda Maya was sharing. She has a tendency maybe to speak up, but she restrains it and therefore protects her from any risk of being judged by others. So the restraining is not unfamiliar with us. You know, if you've eaten, you just had a piece of cake, you restrain the inclination to get another one, right? We have so many places where restraining is actually an appropriate behavior as we maneuver ourselves through our own desires and preferences and structures for something other than what's immediately arising, right? So you reject the extra piece of cake because you don't want to get fat, right? Or you reject the extra piece of cake because you get sick when you overeat sweets. So these are natural unfoldings. That has a role to play on the spiritual path at all as well. Restraining the inclination means there's a tendency to a behavior that you know the outcome is keeping the diminishment or the negativity in place. We restrain by not feeding. So the restraining pulls back our consent to be overtaken by a pattern within ourselves that is determining behavior in the outer world, which feeds our diminishment or feeds an error of our ego to control or to dominate or to be right or to judge and criticize or find fault. That restraining, not going down the rabbit hole, starts withdrawing our attention from lifelong patterns of adapting to life based on our ego. So restraint is another means of rejection. Ultimately, it's more fluid. It has us more there. There's more inclusion of that which we're restraining rather than rejection, where we kill the opposite. But I remember the power of rejection with my daughter. When she was young going to school, she had all these fears that would come up when she was like 4, 5, 6, 7, first grades of school. And so she saw a family, a school counselor, and she told her to take all these feelings and put them in a box and close the lid. So basically reject them. Put them in a box, close the lid. And I said, that's not going to work. You know, that's kind of like magical thinking. My God, it changed her whole life. She suddenly was able to come and interact with other kids to not have this thing overtake her. She just needed to remember all the negatives. She stuck in a box and closed it up. So that was an interim solution in rejection. But ultimately, she had to open the box back up and come to terms with what was in that box. But interimly, it was a right action. So coming to terms is this restraining the inclinations that we know bring us suffering, limitation, negativity. And the last form of these 3 R's is relinquishing. Now, relinquishing actually has more authority than these other 2. It is relinquishing a tendency in you that has served you up to now, but no longer serving you. So you relinquish, that means you let go and get off the position that you have that you're relinquishing. So relinquishing has more inclusion in it but it's a letting go. It's okay. I have this tendency in me or in my reaction to the world, and it seems to have a truth to it. And yet I'm recognizing that it's not serving ultimately. Then I can relinquish the vestment in the position or the point of view or the attachment or the clinging structures that are still shaping me. I let them go. I release them. That's probably the restraining and the relinquishing is the psychological path into what you're speaking, Galen. The rejection, though, has a role to play. I had to reject my addiction. I had to spend 7 years every time it came up rejecting it. It was a continuous process, and initially I was put into circumstances where the very thing that I was addicted to, I had opportunities to get very easily. And I had to consciously reject the inclination to take advantage of the situation. So the rejection became an initial power. Now, when I was able to reject my addiction, then I found something else. I discovered my rage. I discovered the angry part of me that the addiction was covering up. And that was the next territory. And a lot of that had to do with meeting it because I didn't have the authority to reject it. It was too powerful. All I could do was try to restrain it. And in the restraint, yes, it was false. The raging was going on inwardly, but outwardly, I was not speaking it or acting on it. But in time, it took years, I gained enough authority to relinquish the part of me that used rage to come into existence. So there are stages of this process. And of course, each has a role to play, depending upon how fully we're in touch with that we've been rejecting, we've been restraining, and we've been relinquishing. This is how we integrate. This is how we reorganize our personality and our embodiment and the habit of our embodiment to be an expression of the greater truth that's coming to us spiritually. So they are all needed and useful. You cannot solve your problems by indulging them. You can't change your behavior by indulging them. You can't keep following only your preferences and rejecting those parts that you don't wish to be with. These will not allow for the full integration of this journey. Okay, there we go.
What was there a third question? You mentioned something being pulled off the internet.
Oh, yes. Well, let's see. Didn't we have a second question from Anandamayi?
I think she, in her zeal, submitted the same question twice.
Twice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we could open it up now.
Now, let me see if I can venture into this other question. It's come as a byproduct of the Lord of falsehood having a position of power in the world. And it's creating a distortion such that all authority is being questioned. I mean, that not everybody goes into the path of questioning everything, but it is one of the dangers of our times. Because we've lost the traditions, spiritual, religious, moral traditions. The only thing that is left has been this idealized rule of law or principles or values. And they're relatively weak because they don't carry the magical force of spirit traditions. They're man-made creations. Idealism is a man-made creation. Values or ethics or morality are man-made creations, although previously they've been based on larger principles like Christian values, the 10 Commandments. Well, these have all lost their authority as forces for shaping what's possible. It's been a gift of the world that mankind is free to explore new ways to be, but we haven't been able to preserve a structure that will hold the world, hold societies in the way that religions did in the past. There has to be a new world order. There has to be a new basis of truth. Interimly, it's been science. Interimly, science has been elevated to a quasi-religion because we human beings crave, even atheists crave for some version of a greater truth. So the principle here is that we have lost the previous interim roots of our relationship with each other in existence. And part of that has been the dissolving of the family structure, the mom and the dad. Now you're lucky if you get a dad, once in a while, almost like half of all children raised have mostly a mom. There is this falling out of the whole authority structures that had kept mankind working as extensions of the family unit that nature provided. They provided a man and a woman, and then out of that, children, and then called forth qualities. In the development of the human being, the child would call forth qualities in development, not just with each other, but with a child or children that evoked something that was preparing human beings for divinity. Wisdom comes out of the process of the sacrifice that we have in relationship. But these have loosened. We have structures of attachment, want, and need. And we have trauma because the parents of the current generations have lost their access to this higher order. This is what the Gita speaks of, the loss of Dharma. This is the reason why we're in this period of darkness. We're in the midst of the period of darkness. Although we did an intervention, the Lord of falsehood has been dethroned, but it's still going to perpetuate. It can't stop. And now it's in the whole culture that it seems the right thing is to question all authority. It questioned the facts, questioned the people who have been up to now the purveyors of the facts in which decisions were made. So this ungroundedness, of course, creates chaos. And it creates a mass of disturbance. That's because the forces that have been suppressed of darkness to play in this field before have been restrained. They had lost their ability to influence the collective consciousness to the extent that they could. Well, the doors have been opened. Pandora's box has been opened. So these forces are spinning truth, spinning facts, questioning assumptions about the whole nature of the authority. I know this was my generation. My whole generation was rebellion. There's a whole generation of they don't know what they're doing. And we were right. And there was a lot of ignorance. When I was a young man, it was nothing compared to these times. But now the very thing that created the rebellion is not very good at holding the world together. It needed to come to some ownership, some responsibility, recognizing that if we don't agree on certain facts, things won't work. They just won't work. Water will stop flowing, food will stop coming. The people who are in control of the money will keep control of the money. The planet will be eaten up. I mean, this is what we're seeing. And the structure of this period of time that we're in is such that it's being fed by a media that's unbounded, but that there's false equivalencies between truth and untruth, that there is this looking like equality in all the different what's being said. And actually, it's like a smorgasbord. You can choose what to believe. And what we're likely to do, as most human beings are likely to do, is choose what they believe, what they're attracted to, what their design is attracted to. And of course, all of us carry forces of truth and untruth. So therefore, if the untruth is stronger, then you're going to choose the untruth that's really the most attractive thing to listen to read, to believe. And if truth is rising up, then you're going to choose the greater truth, the higher expression that's aligned with the truth that you are. Right now, these forces are equal. And all you have to do is go on the media. And you'll find conspiracy theories about everything. Cabals and secret lies and distortions to control power and money and all these other dystopian ideas of some great big plan to put us all in a box and keep us there to serve its own purposes. This is innate in the subconscious structures of the collective humanity. all these possibilities do exist as subterranean possibilities. But if the darkness is allowed to rise, then the light will be continued to be diminished. If the light is diminished, mankind is doomed. And that's really the peril. So when we look at conspiracy theories, you have to find for yourself if that's a valid way of looking for truth. If you read something written about viruses or something written about certain politicians or political parties, it's coming from the mind. And the mind is a repository of all things that could be fearful or to be distrustful of, to worry about. Therefore, you're going to unwittingly be caught up in the period of time we're in. You won't know what to believe. And if it starts from not being able to believe yourself, it starts from not knowing the truth of yourself. Because if you did, you could discern right away what's true or not true. You could feel the truth and you could feel the untruth. Until you get to that point, however, what do you believe? If you don't have a value system, or if your value system is based on what we call non-effective actions, based on behaviors that would not actually change anything. That was the New Age movement, right? If the world is all fucked up, well, let's just go have sex. And we call that love, love, love. And we'll screw everybody else and we'll just have pleasure. We'll just have enjoyment. And we'll just live in the enjoyment and nobody can tell us we can't enjoy ourselves. That was my generation. I know it. I played in that arena. But I eventually found it dissatisfying. I found it was empty. I found it was meaningless. Because it came from my human inclinations, the senses, the vital, the emotional natures, the patterns of preferences, repulsion, attraction. Then I was looking for something greater, and I quickly found something greater. I found a purpose. I found a way to align myself. And I discovered that by aligning myself, I did gain some discernment. Now, this process of finding our own purpose is also fraught to a certain extent in this culture with error. So, yeah, I went wrong directions relative to my ultimate purpose, but ultimately something in me pulled me back. So when we navigate these waters of the world around us, the thing you must stay with is your own experience. Spiritually, the world needs to be allowed to be where it is because there's no way you or any of us yet are able to individually affect change in the predicament that the world is going through. It is being corrected. It is being impacted by forces that intervene, but there is not a period that has been more fraught with disruption, distortions, and error as the period we're in right now. Because in the United States, we have one person who is actually aligned with truth, trying to establish an order. It doesn't mean that's going to solve it. It is the agreements that are out there are now so diverse that there's almost no single place that everyone agrees in, even the Democrats. The only thing they could agree on was get rid of Trump. That's the only reason they came together. Now they got rid of Trump. Now watch, they too will scatter, depending upon their ideologies and their positions that they've established through this, identity politics. You're not going to solve this from anything up here. You're only going to solve it with being in touch with your purpose individually. And only speak from your own experience. And don't feed other stories, other points of view unduly. And we're seeing this in the news where there's false equivalency, where they say this is something that's been researched for years and years and tested by many people, and that this is what they've come to, maybe not the absolute that they come to. And the other side is somebody's opinion, somebody's conspiracy theory, somebody looking up from something out of the smorgasbord and created a story about it and got attention on the media, got agreement on the media, and the larger media makes them equivalent. This is where we are. It's the time. And it's the greatest peril because with our incapacity to agree on our purpose as a culture and as the world, then we can't meet the real dangers that are coming to humanity itself through the pandemic, through climate change. So what do we do? We recognize we're in the midst of the peril. And more than ever, it's important to be in truth with yourself. Don't take on anything that is not yours to take on. Don't try to solve the collective problem by worrying about it, or by saying it shouldn't be this way, or by judging others or condemning others. Don't bother. It goes nowhere. It's only from truth and our own direct experience that we can speak. And that what's so important here is you are the reality creators. If you can't speak truth, if you can't act on truth, then the world is doomed. You are not without responsibility. We have a role to play. And your role to play is to awaken that a reality maker within you. So I had to speak to this. I have a number of people who are close to me and some people who aren't, who've been writing to me, finding error in my points of view and the views that I have that I'm sharing even here. And they list and have sent me links to various sources of alternative facts that are out there, which I've looked at. And the thing that I see is, don't go there. Don't go there. There's just, if the existing order cannot hold up, then nothing can. Now we should honor what is the current authority by discerning into their methods, their purpose, and their motives. Their methods, their purpose, and their motives. Then you will perhaps then be able to have your mind be collaborating with what role you may have to play. But if you don't have a role to play, if it's not in your face, if you're not, somebody's asking you the question, you're finding a way to answer, then you have to go within and only speak the truth you can know from being with yourself. Okay, so that might not have been the questions for many of you, but it is for some, and I felt this was the time to bring it forward. Okay, so now, that does.
Yeah.
Did you have any comment on any of this?
I do. I mean, I feel like that's the most cogent and clear articulation I've heard you speak about how to relate and navigate the peril. Because I know for myself, and I think for all of us, it's so easy to look outward and to see how intractable and impossible it is. It's, I mean, in our country alone, it's a house divided, but like you were just saying, it's not divided one way, it's fractured into so many sub-fractures. And like you said, the balance is 50-50, and you can't really achieve anything like consensus when you have half of a body wanting to go one way and half wanting to go the other. You tear it in apart.
Yes.
So I've often wondered about this because I see that, and it's painful. You know, it's painful to see that this is what our country has come to, that it's a source of shame, really, in a lot of ways. And so what I hear you saying so clearly is put your own house in order. Focus on your purpose, align to truth as you know it, and know that this larger house is on fire, it is burning, it is in chaos, it is obscured by many forms of delusion. At the same time, there are many forms of good intention arising. And that if we can plant our own flag in the soil and hold clear, it's like one point of truth or light coming into the planet. And no, it doesn't solve everything. I keep getting the image of like a massive cruise ship with no water, you know, and that's not going anywhere. That's like our country right now. But like we're the individual passengers, you know, that have our, and it may only be individual, but we have our fulcrum, we have our lever, and that's what's asked of us now. So I feel in what you've just said, Sat Shree, that's the clearest way to hold this, you know, and it's actually empowering. At the same time, it's holding a larger context for the chaos. It's still, well, what do we have total agency and authority over? Our consciousness and our actions out of that consciousness.
Perfect. Beautiful.
So let's open it up now. I mean, certainly that's a lightning rod of a topic, you know, so if there's something you have in response to that, a question, a clarification. And of course, really, and like I said at the beginning, this is the precious opportunity to engage with Sat Shree, with whatever is there for you. So please take advantage of it. Who knows when you'll get the next chance in this format.
First up is Jolene.
Jolene.
Hi.
Okay.
Hello. Good to see you both. Good to see you. Hi. This isn't really a response to, or a question in response to what you just said. It was a question that came up before you started talking about that, Sat Shree. It's in regards to confusion as a compensating structure, as a block, and how to work with it and be with it. Specifically for me, it was like a paralyzing, and it still comes up at times, this kind of paralysis, and I think analysis, and then not making decisions, and just having this swirling mind that doesn't move. And I'm curious if you could go into the deeper meaning of its function. I think it's a protection of some sort.
Okay, very good, Jolene. I think it's getting right to the sense of a collective disorder is too many choices. And then it looks like what we have to choose is something we prefer. And so we want to make sure it's the right choice. So the idea here is that the ego is in confusion because of mixed motives arising into the mental plane that is looking to get the right answer, which typically is shaped by our own self-interests, to protect ourselves, to get what we want. Foundation of ego, foundation of the whole structure of mind, to survive, to not be diminished, to avoid diminishment, to survive, to not be overtaken, to not be abandoned, to whatever may be the story that's in the vital nature or lined up in the body. Because for most of us, the mind is the piece that's above the water of all the rest of us. It has been in our human life the one light that can lead us. It has authority because of that. And it is a place where we, through our education, have disciplined and trained so that our mind becomes the definer of what to do or not to. But it ignores behind the more deeper subconscious, emotional, embodied trauma, structures, adaptions, strategies, decisions that are not available to the mind readily. So what ends up is like we're an iceberg being led by the one piece that's above water. The rest of us is being dragged along slowly in its own way, where the mind is trying to make sense of it. It's also looking from the world, believing that it has a say on the direction it's going. But the mind has no more say over the direction of where we're going than the tip of an iceberg has over the rest of the iceberg. It is not the final purveyor of truth. It is the rest of the iceberg. So when confusion arises, there is an indication that you're using your mind as the decider, determining direction. And it did. It served you in your life. You survived. But of course, it's also the place where all mental illness exists, where all irresolvable, endless repeating conflicts exist. So we have to find another way of knowing. Because confusion is based from the awareness knowing, the mental knowing, the intellect knowing. It has to access a deeper, more embodied part of knowing. So there is a thing in us that can know in our heart, in our gut, and in our body. Learning to test any questions around, like, let's say, confusion. One thing about confusion is behind it is the question, what is right? What serves? What doesn't? So there will be the fear of doing it wrong, and there'll be the desire to do it right. So up here, there's a real duality. But down here, there's something that resonates. Yes or no? True or untrue? It's a part that calls forth a contraction or an expansion, a relaxation or a contraction. It depends what part of the body. So if you look at something coming forward, what should I do? That's a valid question. How should I live? That's the basis. Then you have to include the other parts of you. And then in the sincerity of that inquiry, it will speak. And it'll be a recognition. Initially, it's a recognition. Recognition isn't clarity. Recognition is a response that says something like yes. Then the recognition, if you stay with the recognition, the revelation of the yes will start revealing itself. It'll start coming to the mind. The revelation of what it is you've recognized. Oh, that's why I need to do this will come up. And at some point, the mind will join in and it will become a realization. And from realization, you can act. So we have to tap into the deeper parts of our iceberg. We have to go into the parts of ourselves. Is this really an important choice? Is this really matter? Or is this a habit? Because confusion is one way of keeping yourself protected. It's one way of avoiding taking a chance or risking. I can't choose because I don't know. I have to have it figured out before I do it. It's a perfection design. I can't do it unless it's perfect. Yeah. This unwillingness to go and be wrong, to do it wrong, to be ignorant, to be seen as ignorant, whatever that may be, are behind all of this. When you access that foundational parts of yourself, you'll find this relaxation brings a grounding into your body. The more you ground yourself into your body, which may be a grind to do so, but ground yourself into your body, the more confusion disappears as an issue. Okay. Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you both.
I like that, grind your way into the body.
Yeah, you were next to me. Huh? Came up.
Next up is Elizabeth.
Ah,
Hello.
Elizabeth.
Hi.
Hey, good to see you.
I'm so grateful to see you today, and my heart is bursting. And when the opportunity arose to raise the hand, I realized my mind is mush. I can't think straight. I can't formulate any question. But I had this feeling that I'm on a sort of standstill. And that's probably, you're going to say, the right place to be.
See how you get your own answer?
Yeah, but it's, I'm really struggling with getting enough time to pay attention to myself, to my inner life, to my body. And I also have the problem of my attachments, especially to the kids, to my children. And I'm really struggling to, I feel there's something I got to do there, but I'm in this paralysis. It's
All right. Your mind is mush, so it's not going to be useful. So you're definitely going to have to connect to your body, to your heart, to your gut, to your body, to maneuver through this direction. But it does sound to me what you just listed there, exactly the nature of the work that's before you. And that's in the category of what we spoke of before, which is the role of rejection, the role of restraining, and the role of relinquishing. And of course, behind those structures, that modality, those set of tools, are embedded structures of attachment, desire, fear, and the rest of it. So the finding time, I mean, there's a paradox in that. Show me time found. What does found time look like? Now. When you find time, all it is you found now. So if you didn't find now, there's no need for time. So now is always the moment to take the action that serves your movement forward. the rest is, you're right, mush. But part of that is, Susan, Elizabeth, you still have to train yourself to align with what's coming. And part of that is you do need to restrain or control the impulse in you to keep busy, to keep creating projects, to find something more to worry about, to want, because of the attachment, talk to your kids. And then they'll want to talk to you and get into that play where the vital attachment structure gets fulfilled because they want to talk to you, and then you get confirmed and you're a mom again and you feel our grandmother or whatever you are, to be able to enjoy that part of your vital that still feeds off of attachment. So if you know that attachment's a structure, stop taking actions based on attachment. Let them come to you. Restrain the inclination to create on more projects.
I hardly have any at the
Okay,
moment.
good.
Yeah.
Well, you got that one handled. Then you certainly have more time than you know what to do with.
Mm.
And then there's another problem, right? Because the ego doesn't know how to function without something to do. So what do? At that time off, you can only do so much spiritual practice or attending seminars or all this. You also have to live life. So what do you do? And that is probably something also should be a question here. What do I do now? What are my actions? No doubt about it, Elizabeth, you're coming into the territory of yourself that's unfamiliar, and you're discovering a new way to live, a new way to be aligned with that territory. What I can tell you, one thing, is you took the right action by coming forward, even when your mind was mush.
Right.
So true clarity comes through knowing yourself. True clarity is by reclaiming the territory that you have not yet claimed. And that territory needs to be claimed for divine, for the purpose of your life. From that place, when you look outward, what actions to take need to be aligned with with what you need to reclaim the territory. You know, what allows that to happen? The mush is a version of confusion. It's a more embodied version of confusion. It's like the caterpillar when it's dissolving in the cocoon. It means there's enough bliss and enjoyment in that you don't want to come out of the cocoon yet. But at some point, you're going to have to harvest. You're going to have to come out, and you're going to have to find your wings. But perhaps now is not the time, except to completely let go of that which you lay claim to in your life that is perpetuating the ignorance, the attachments, the things that remain in you, to relinquish them for now. You never have to you can have your children, you will have your children forever, but you'll lose your attachment. And therefore, you'll really begin to discover how much you enjoy them and how magnificent they are without you. And is that not humility? Right? Isn't motherhood a position? Isn't it a strategy of ego? Right?
Yeah.
Needing children to prove her reality? You know, you have to pay attention.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have your own reality. And it's the one that just stepped forward.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Next up is Isa.
Isa. Is it Isa or your companion there? We'll see. Are they frozen? Yeah, they got silence and stillness down really good.
Well, we're frozen too. Look at
Oh,
that.
look at that. We're frozen too.
Who is frozen here?
We're all frozen. No, some aren't.
Okay.
All right. So we had a freeze moment. And did we lose Isa?
We did.
Yeah, they're gone.
Well, poof. The magic land of virtual reality, where existence can be cut off by an electrical surge or a failure in the internet. Yes. Winked out. No longer exist. They still exist, but we don't know they exist. What's real? Do they exist or not? Cat in the box. cat exists and doesn't exist simultaneously. How do you know if there is a cat or not cat? Look in the box. Oh, they're not there because they don't exist. The mind. You can never solve problems with the mind.
So in waiting to see if anybody comes up, we did
All
have-
right. Well, we're almost out of time, so I think
We-
the universe has just wrapped us out.
We-
What? You got one more?
We did have one question that came through. Amanda Mai did send another question.
Okay,
online.
let's try it.
And I'll read it to you here. Dear Sat Shree, I have another question. Sometimes I get a bit confused with the many mother terms. This is, there is the Divine Mother, the World Mother, the Earth, the Mother Earth, the Mother. Is the Mother the same as the Divine Mother? Or is the World Mother the same as Mother Earth? I think this question is more of my awareness and my intellect understanding. I bow to the Divine Mother, which for me is supreme. And I think I can feel Mother Earth as this beauty, wonderful and loving being.
It's all mother. Every one of them are different expressions of the same principle. So if you're looking what to worship, worship mother. Whatever form she may take. Worship is the key. Which mother you're worshiping, don't worry about it. Create the category mother, and they're all included. It's good to have a single focus. So just not worry about it. I will tell you simply, the world mother is the manifesting, glorious physical creation. And the greater Mahashakti is the mother of the universe, of universes, of all domains. And there's the interim divine mother, which is actually accessible, that you can feel. And that's been represented by beings like the Mother of Pondicherry and other forms of the divine mother. But that the 6th chapter of the Mother book describes all those quite well. But really for you, it's the mother. For all of us, it's the mother. All right. Okay, so Isa's back. So,
All right.
all right.
Here we
You're
go.
back.
Give it another shot.
All right, we
Is-
opened the
here-
box and the cat is there.
Here,
Okay.
Isa's up next.
My name's Issa. Thank
Isa, sorry.
Isa.
Yes.
That's okay. Thank you. I shared with you about, I think the words you said is that the mother found me with the experiences I've had over the last 5 days. And I've been struggling with passion and lust and feeling I don't know how to relate to that, to those energies with these new eyes. It feels like it's very out of balance.
It's not, he said it's not uncommon. When the Kundalini Shakti starts waking up, it wakes up all those desire aspects that we've come to terms with, relatively speaking. So especially the sexual passion, the drive that comes from the 2nd and the lower 3rd chakras, the anger, the desire, the needs, they all get emphasized because there's a new consciousness coming to you. So they become more real for you. They become more tangible and they become thereby more unruly. So the conversation I had about rejection, restraint, and relinquishing, it is to hold what's arising and not acting on it is the key. Allowing it to have its full expression. Now, when this was happening to me, I was advised to be celibate. And I spent 20 years, pretty much, most of it, 12 of those years, completely celibate. And the principle of that is that all this passion, instead of getting released through the physical expression of sex or through the expression of the anger or rage that would come up periodically, it started to convert, it started transmuting. And what I found that was best for transmuting it was to take that passion, to take that desire nature and send it up my spine. Imagine it going up my whole spine. Now, it was remarkable that I discovered that. the whole idea is that it's actually trying to come up and out. And the nature of the force behind this is the purpose of your very existence. So it has a huge passion for truth, for God, to know itself coming up in you. If it gets stuck down here, yeah, it's going to feed those structures. But if it can go through your whole system, it can start waking up all the other parts of you that are still asleep, that have to catch up. So it's perfectly natural, and that is the way to collaborate. Don't turn it into something to indulge or to reject, but rather something to hold and direct upward in your body. And it will help ease the pressure. It's still going to be uncomfortable. I mean, I spent years in India uncomfortable with the amount of passion that was running through my nature. So it is learning to transmute the hidden energies of the cells into an awakened body, an awakened consciousness, ultimately. Okay? You said that gives you some guidance?
Yeah. I've been working with microcosmic orbit, sort of recirculating. But it sounds like you're suggesting a middle ground of not embracing the desire and lust, but also not completely rejecting it and going into celibacy. I mean,
Yeah.
we did just get married, so.
All right, well, find the right balance. The issue is that where it wants to go ultimately is upward. If it stays here, it's going to stays in the sexual passion aspect. So you want it to go upward. So it can include your relationship with your new wife with this process. Matter of fact, Tantra is one of the means by which we can convert sexual energy into a force of full expression of Kundalini Shakti. Now, the fact that the awakening has come probably is related to your marriage, and it's probably related to a certain chemistry between the two that makes this more accessible to you. And it's going to affect, I don't know your wife's name, but
Laura.
Laura. All right, Laura, welcome. It will affect also her and by being collaborative in the process. So I've discovered this also works. Celibacy was a path that I had to travel for myself. It's not necessary for everyone, but the issue of restraint in order for it to convert into its higher full expression, which goes beyond our personal desires or passions, is what you would want to ultimately accomplish. Okay. Isha? Hey, yeah, right. May the force be with you. All right. So good. Let's wrap up. We're now just spend some 5 minutes together, sitting silent and still. So it's been a delight. Satas, do you have anything here to bring to wrap it up?
No, just I think you said it with the delight. Yeah, it's been wonderful sitting here together and with everyone on the call.
Yeah, it is very good. All right, so now we'll have another version of the light, the silence and still eternal principle that lives in the core of each of us. So let's bring yourself into your body. Be aware of your breath. Breathe deeply into your body. Feel your connection to the world mother. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat Shree. All glory to Supreme. May truth manifest. Namaste. Thank you all. I just want to remind you that we have one of our last series of programs, 2 satsangs and intensives, starting tomorrow. Tomorrow will be on transformation. Friday will be on faith and surrender. And the intensive on Saturday will be on the power of love. So join in if you can. Be well.